What's going on, everybody? So I thought I'd do a video here. I had somebody recently ask, and I've had this question asked a lot on Instagram, but someone just recently asked on YouTube, and now that I went from 650 subscribers to nearly 12,000 in just a short couple weeks because one of my videos went crazy, I thought it'd be a good time to do this, and I figure it's going to get asked more because there are a lot of people out there who aspire to be business owners and want to own their own automotive shop. And so that was the question that was asked. They asked, how did I go from tech to shop owner and how I made that transfer, what I did. So I'll just tell you my story. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. That's obviously going to be different for everybody. We've been pretty successful. We're almost 3 years into our shop, and success, right, is in the eyes of that person. Maybe successful to me is not successful to someone else. To me, my goal as far as the business was a 3 to 5 year goal, just building the business, 3 years, within 3 years, build it up to where, it could sustain itself. And then 3 to 5 years, my goal is to grow the business. And then after 5 years, obviously still grow, but get to the point where I'm not constantly involved. So right now it's just me. I'm a one-man shop. And so I'm basically what you would consider the CEO, the chief everything officer. So I, advisor, tech, CEO, manager, shop owner. I don't do accounting. I do have an accountant. I hired an accountant. I do a lot of the social media stuff. I obviously do YouTube as well. So how I started is I started out working for an independent shop. I worked there for 2 years. I had been trying to get into the dealer since I started there because I loved Hondas at that time and just really liked Honda, so I wanted to work for the Honda dealer. It's funny because back then I had a whole different idea of what the Honda dealer was like. I thought I was going to be surrounded by techs that loved Honda and all that stuff, and that was not the case. Most of the techs there didn't even like Hondas. None of them, I would say the majority of them didn't even drive Hondas. I drove Hondas. I loved working on Hondas. So it was just a whole different world. So I worked at that independent shop for 2 years. I went from there I did finally get in at the Honda dealer. I worked at that specific Honda dealer for almost 5 years. We had some personal stuff go on in our lives. I won't get into that. And so I actually stepped back from working on cars at all. My brother started a business and I helped them run it. I managed one of their stores for about a year and a half. We found out that we were gonna have our first child. I wasn't making very much with my brothers, so I went back into the automotive field to get back to the point where I was making money because my wife and I had talked about her staying at home once we had kids. And then once she officially made that decision, she wanted to stay home. Obviously, I knew I had to get back to where I was making money because I took nearly a $50,000 a year pay cut to go help my brothers, which I was fine with. At that point in time in my life, like I said, we had some stuff happen personally that really kind of flipped our worlds upside down. So the pay cut was not a big deal. I've never been a money chaser. I just love working on cars, and I don't know, I'm big in family and stuff like that. So anyways, so I went back to that same dealer that I worked for originally, worked for them for about a year and a half-ish, somewhere right around there, left, went and worked for an independent for 4 months. It was not a good fit. Didn't like the shop, didn't like the owner, a lot of dishonesty going on. So I left that shop. And I went back to the dealer, a different dealer though. It was a Honda dealer, and I worked there for another, I would say, year and a half, maybe a little bit longer than that, maybe 2 years. Total, I worked for Honda for nearly 6 years-ish. I don't know exactly. I've been doing this for about 13 years, right around there. I don't know the exact. But anyways, so while I was at my last dealership, this is going to be the transition part, so hopefully that intro is not too long for you guys, but I wanted to give you the backstory of my career and then how I started. So once I knew that I was going to start a shop, I started telling family and friends hey, I'm going to start working, start doing some stuff at home. So I just told family and friends. I was just doing family and friends work on their cars, just helping them out, doing side jobs here and there to kind of build up my clientele. I did that the entire time that I worked at that last dealership and before. So in between working for the independent shop that I worked for 4 months and getting the job at the last Honda dealership, I had a break in there of 3 or 4 months where I wasn't actually working because I interviewed at 7 or 8 places. because I really wanted to make the right choice this time. I didn't want to go work somewhere again for 4 months and have to quit and go somewhere else. So that whole time, for basically about 2 years, I was working on family and friends cars and just having them refer people out. So I got to the point where I was working at the dealership full time and then working at home, but I would be booked out like 3 or 4 weeks. And eventually I just got fed up at the dealership. It was just not what I had envisioned throughout that time. And I'm kind of one of those people, I'll try to stick it out as long as I can. So finally realized that I had just worn out my welcome at the dealership and it just wasn't a good fit anymore. My particular dealers that I worked at, you were just another number and they didn't treat you as like a human being. And every tech's gonna be different in my mind. I think we all have our own goals goals and visions and aspirations in life. For me, I wanted more freedom. I wasn't extremely money driven. I was more freedom driven. So I wanted more time to myself and I couldn't stand the days that, slow days at the dealership. So then you got 10 or 15 techs sitting around the shop and you've got 3 cars in the shop. And so everybody has to stay because you're flat rate and they won't let you go home. And that really drove me nuts. And then nobody ever came out to just even talk to you, just to ask how you were doing, ask you if you needed anything, none of that stuff. And that drove me nuts. And then there's other guys in the shop that were money motivated. So for them, more money would have motivated them to keep them around. Ended up a bunch of people left that dealership. So anyways, back to the original story. So I never really sat down and added them, but I for sure had at least 50 to 70 like regular customers that I was working on within this 2-year period of time. And a lot of them were not referring people out to me because I was already booked out 3 weeks because I was only working, basically Friday night, Saturday, and every now and again I'd work Sunday. So I was just doing what I can on those days because I still wanted to block out Sundays for my family. At this time I had my wife and my daughter. She was like 3 years old or so. So I wanted time with them. So I didn't want to work 7 days a week. So I still kind of kept some sort of boundaries there. So I built that up. And then when we decided to officially launch the shop, before I left the dealership, I started letting everybody know, hey, I'm going to start my own shop. And as soon as I quit, I made an announcement and then people started referring me out to people. Now I did make some mistakes. I've made a ton of mistakes starting the shop. And I can get into those. I don't know how long I want this video to be because I don't know how many of you will stick around till the end. So, and I understand that time is valuable. So, one of the things I did as well, as I was a tech, and sorry, I talk with my hands, but when I was a tech, I bought anything and everything that I thought I might need for tools and equipment wise. I didn't buy like crazy, like expensive equipment, but I had my own scan tools and stuff, but I was buying like a lot of my specialty tools and stuff. And I knew I was always going to specialize in Hondas, obviously, because that's my background. So I had catered a lot of my tools towards that as well. So when I started the shop, I still needed a ton of tools. Don't get me wrong. That's the one thing I don't think a lot of people realize is when you, like me, I had this picture painted in my mind when I was going to start the shop that, I've got a lot of it covered. Well, then when I started the shop, I didn't have nearly as much covered as I thought I did, but I did more than the average person, I think. Because for years I had just been buying anything and everything and I paid cash. I used all of my money that I made and bought tools. I did not go out and blow it on stupid stuff. I did buy a ton of tools, so that helped me. So when I started the business, I had a lot of cash, a lot of paid for tools that I paid for in cash, sorry. Another thing that helped us as well is because we knew we were gonna be making this move. At that time, we had sold our house. We had bought our house at the end of 2012. And we had a lot of equity in that house. So when we bought this house, we specifically looked for a piece of property that we could either build a garage or that already had one on it. We found this property that already had a garage on it. The guy was a hobbyist and he worked on old classic trucks. So he already had an engine hoist in here that runs across the top of the shop. You can't see it, but it runs across the length of the shop. And then it was already wide open, piped for air already. So it has all of the air lines piped. So all I had to do was bring in a lift basically, and then my tools and equipment. So that helped us kind of get a jump on things. And then we also put some money down on the property and then used the rest that we had left over as savings. That way, in case we had a slow month or a couple slow weeks or whatever, that we still had money to pay our bills. So for the first 4 to 6 months, we didn't even pull any money out of the business. We just took all of our money and put it back into the business. Anything that we made, above and over our bills and overhead. We just put it back into the business, and kept buying whatever we needed, paid for shop management systems, paid for tools that we needed, whatever, anything that we needed for the shop, that's what we did. And then once we got to the point where we felt comfortable, we started pulling a little bit, and not nearly what I was making as a tech. When I was a flat rate tech, I was making 100 grand a year when I left. And if I went back now, I'd easily make, I would say, at least 125,000, maybe more, because I was offered an additional almost $7 more on the hour to come back a year later after I left. So, so I didn't pay myself a ton. I solely focused on growing the business, I guess. And so I don't know. For us, this is the way it's worked. We've not done anything in debt with the business. We have no business loans. We have very low overhead, which has helped us grow the business. And now we have well over 300 regular clients. We've built our business solely on trust, which is a huge deal in the automotive industry because everybody knows somebody that has a bad story or bad experience with an automotive shop. So that's how I've built my entire business on. We're very client focused. And we focus on the clients. We do a lot of like customer appreciation stuff, or we'll give out gift cards, and we have custom made sugar cookies. And we let our clients know that if there's a problem, we're going to take care of it. I've always said that every business will eventually make a mistake. And like I said, I've made a ton as far as just the business side, but I've made mistakes on the customer's cars. You know, when you're at the dealer, you're not taking personal responsibility for that. The dealership's taking the responsibility if you mess something up. Obviously, you're fixing it for free, but the dealership takes the full, brunt of that. So if you leave an oil drain bolt loose or something, obviously, if it needs an engine, the dealership pays for that. Well, when you start your own business, obviously, you take responsibility for that. So now if I make a mistake, I just rest assured to my customers that I'm going to take care of it, and I'll make sure they're taken care of 100%. So I think I'll stop the video there. I think I'll do this in 2 parts and kind of get into the specifics of how I've run my business and what I've done and some things I've learned. And so that way it's not like a crazy long 30-minute video. So anyways, hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of how I got the start of our business. And then in the next video, I'll kind of go on how I started the business and what I've done and where I've learned and the mistakes I've made. So I appreciate you watching. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. We'll go into more depth. I do a lot of tool stuff. That's really what I'm interested in, is tool reviews and equipment reviews. But I don't mind talking about this stuff too, because if I can teach you and help you learn from the mistakes that I made and you don't have to make them, I'm all for that. I love helping people. So appreciate you guys. Take it easy.